The film industry is a money-first business. Every major Hollywood production has the same goal, to make a profit. And when a film is wildly successful, you can bet that the studio will try to replicate their success by making a follow-up film. Sequels have been a practice in the film industry for almost as long as it existed. Some are good, some are bad, some are considered among the best films ever made, and some are tossed in with the Razzie contenders. Hi, I'm Reed the Outlier, here with another hot take that goes against popular opinion, and today we're looking at Ghostbusters II, the follow-up to perhaps the best sci-fi comedy film ever made. Ghostbusters was released in 1984, and it was a huge hit. Written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, the film centers around a group of scientists who form a paranormal elimination service and save New York City from the destruction of a shape-shifting deity called Gozer, all the while providing plenty of sci-fi thrills and comedy gold at the likes of Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and the infinitely watchable Ernie Hudson. Now, I'm not here to talk down on Ghostbusters, not at all. I love this film, and it has held up remarkably well considering it's a product of the 80s, where a lot of sci-fi projects were a little too over the top. Ghostbusters 2, on the other hand, doesn't get as much love as the first film does, and critics weren't too fond of it when it first came out. But hey, you know me, and you know I'm going to find a way to defend this movie, so let's take a closer look. The movie takes place 5 years after the first film, with the Ghostbusters being forced to shut down their business after being sued by the state of New York for the damages ensued after their battle with Gozer. Ray owns a bookstore, Egon continues work as a scientist, Peter hosts a talk show about psychics, and the movie's not really clear on what Winston does, but we do know that he works as a children's entertainer with Ray from time to time. Dana is divorced with a baby named Oscar. And yeah, the baby is a source of scorn for some critics of this movie, but we'll touch on that in a little bit. When her stroller rolls away uncontrollably on its own, Dana calls on her scientific allies to investigate. This is where Peter and Dana reunite, and we arrive at one of the common complaints of this movie. Oscar the baby is often viewed as a device for convenience for the film's plot, and Peter's interactions with him are often described as awkward attempts at family comedy. And yeah, I can agree with that, but I also think it's intentional. Peter says himself that he doesn't have much experience with babies, so it makes sense that his character doesn't know how to interact with one. Now, this would ordinarily be a minor scene that would just get brushed aside, but there's a line here that gives the scene more substance. When Peter is alone with Oscar, he tries talking to him, and he openly admits that he could have been his father, rather believing that he should have been. We know he's still interested in Dana, but this short little confession shows how Peter's character has developed since the first film. In that film, Peter was very snarky. He was flirty, sarcastic, and didn't have much redeemable qualities to speak of. While he still has a lot of that here, we see that he has matured. He's not the exact same guy from the first movie. His character has gone through an arc, and that's more than can be said for some sequels. Speaking of characters, one bright spot that everyone agrees on with this film is Peter MacNicol as Janosz Poha, the museum curator. He's an oddball that gets possessed early on in the film, and he's just great. He's funny, but he's also unnerving. When he stares at you, you can tell something is off, and when his powers manifest, it makes for some disturbing imagery. The main villain of this film is Vigo the Carpathian, a tyrannical 16th century magician who has preserved his spirit inside an ancient painting at the museum, who seeks to possess a child to be reborn into a new body on New Year's Eve. I think the villain is one of the film's biggest strengths. In the first film, the main supernatural villain, Gozer, is absent until the climax, with side villains making appearances here and there, but most of the film just follows the Ghostbusters at their work with no otherworldly antagonist to speak of, at least until the climax. Here, we know who the villain is early on, we know what his intentions are, and unbeknownst to the main characters, he's hiding in plain sight the entire time. I love that about this movie. It puts the threat closer to center stage, and it pays off by giving the audience crucial information that the heroes are deprived of. The Ghostbusters drill under the streets of New York to investigate what may have possessed Dana's baby stroller, and they come across a massive river of ectoplasmic slime. And this is one of the things I love about this film, in that it's willing to go bigger and darker. Often when it comes to sequels, we want to see them go bigger and farther than before, and this movie manages to do that. Look at the imagery here. Look how creepy and unsettling it is. You can feel the suspense and fear that Ray feels as the slime tries to pull him in. Now don't get me wrong, there were suspenseful moments in the first film too, but there was usually something to counterbalance it. There would be a lighthearted music cue or a comedic line to offset it, but here they double down. When the mood gets tense, it often stays tense, and you can feel the stakes rising higher as they dive deeper into their investigation. Speaking of suspenseful moments, Janosch realizes that Dana has a baby that could serve as a vessel for Vigo, and yeah, just check this out. I don't care who you are, that is creepy, and I love it. The Ghostbusters cause a citywide blackout and are brought to court for their actions, and we get a return of a classic Ghostbusters side character, Louis Tully. I wish Rick Moranis would make a full return to filmmaking. I swear no one could play the nerdy character as well as him. But anyway, that's another show. The more I dive into this movie, the more I realize how much it still retains the personality from the first film that was created by its characters. Dan Aykroyd is still funny as the eccentric scientist. Harold Ramis's dry routine provides a brilliant contrast. Ernie Hudson is still the cool guy that can steal the scene. Sigourney Weaver has that intangible quality that keeps you invested. Annie Potts is still likable as the stubborn secretary, and Rick Moranis, you just can't help but love the guy. Bill Murray doesn't seem to have quite the level of enthusiasm as he does in the first film, but his sarcastic shtick is still effective, and it's the glue that ties the whole group together. The courtroom is attacked by ghosts, the Ghostbusters save the day, and it goes on to be exactly what everyone pans the film for being, a retread of the original, and it really is following the formula a little too close. The reluctant romance, the bookworm that wants to shut them down, and the effort to protect the world from a powerful spirit from the netherworld, that's all here. I can't deny that the criticism is truthful. The film repeats a lot of what came before, but I thought about it for a while, and I asked myself, why is that a bad thing? If we loved the original film, why is it wrong to have more of the same? It continues the story, it provides new interactions with the characters, and it gives us more of the ghost-busting action that we loved from the first movie. On the surface, that seems like it should be enough, so why does it irk people when they follow the same formula? I mean, it is called Ghostbusters 2 after all, and it delivers on that title. I'm sure you can make the case that they could expand their universe or find a new adventure to go on, but at the end of the day, it's still a Ghostbusters movie, and no matter what different direction they took it in, it would still revolve around these characters busting ghosts. The more I think about it, the more I get stumped. Everyone says that the movie just repeats the first film, so I have to ask again, just because a sequel sticks close to what the first film did, does that make it bad by default? Well, I guess it all depends on perspective, but I don't think so. I love these characters, and I love the sci-fi world that they create, so another film of the Ghostbusters doing their thing is just fine by me. But like I said earlier, this movie goes bigger and darker. It pushes itself to be more threatening than the first film. What about the ghostly voice calling out to Winston in the subway tunnels? What about the phantom locomotive? What about Janosch flying around the city as the ghostly nanny? What about Titanic showing up in New York Harbor? This is all very disturbing and creepy imagery, and it's a welcome change of pace from the comedy that this film likes to partake in. The Ghostbusters also do something unique here that wasn't really explored in the first film. They use the byproduct of the main antagonist to their advantage. Throughout the film, the Ghostbusters are studying this slime that has been accumulating under the city for ages, and they learn that it's tied directly to the spirit of Vigo, still alive in the painting. They learn that they can reverse the negative energy emitting from the substance and use it as a positive energy to combat the evil that created it. They use the main enemy's creation against him. Now you have to admit, that's pretty cool. In fact, I think the climax from this film is almost as effective as the climax from the first film. The setup is nice and eerie. Janosch provides a wonderful creep factor, almost sounding like a medium in a seance, while the dread of Vigo reaching corporeal form provides a real sense of dread. You can feel the sense of isolation as the characters are cut off from the rest of the city, and you feel the camaraderie they share, serving as their strength to band together to defeat this ancient evil. One of my favorite scenes is when Peter refuses to lay down and admit defeat, and instead musters up the energy to insult Vigo to his face. Just as the Ghostbusters have been doing, even though the situation is dire, the movie makes sure to send positive vibes to the viewer as well. The film does a good job providing a sense of satisfaction. There are several points in the climax where I feel bursts of euphoria inside. The Statue of Liberty smashing the museum skylight, Peter standing up to Vigo, the painting's explosion, and the city of New York celebrating with Lewis when they think he saved the day. Whenever a movie makes me feel fuzzy and tingly inside, I know it's doing something right. I understand that people criticize Ghostbusters 2 for repeating the first film, but I'm not sure why that's enough to disregard this movie entirely. I liked the Ghostbusters the way they were, and I'm just fine leaving them that way. Those are my thoughts on Ghostbusters 2. I'll never say it's as good as the original, but that doesn't mean it's not good at all. Thank you for watching my video, and please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed yourself, feel free to give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more content. It is free after all. Next episode, we'll be looking at another sequel, but one that I'm not crazy about like everyone else, and serves as an ending to a story that I think went one movie too long. I'm Reed the Outlier saying take care and be kind.